I thought my girlfriend was the sweetest person I'd ever met until I accidentally heard what she really thought about me and my money. That's when I decided to teach her a lesson she'd never forget. My girlfriend told her cousin she was just using me to pay her bills until she found a richer guy. So I made one move that flipped her world overnight. I'm a 29-year-old male and have been running my own electrical business for about 5 years now. It's nothing too fancy, but it pays the bills and then some. I own my own house, a modest 3-bedroom place in a decent neighborhood, which I paid off last year. I work hard and mind my own business, that whole thing. About 2 years ago, I was at a house party when I spotted Beatrice, a 28-year-old female, across the room. She was blonde, had a cute smile, and was laughing at something her friend said. It wasn't just that she was attractive. There were plenty of attractive women at that party. It was the way she seemed genuinely happy, not performing for social media or trying to impress anyone. That's what made her stand out. We ended up talking by the kitchen counter for about 2 hours. I found out she does nails at this upscale salon called Divine Digits or some bougie name like that. The kind of place where rich suburban wives pay $80 to get little flowers painted on their fingernails. What I liked about Beatrice was that she didn't get weird when I told her what I do for work. You'd be surprised how many women's eyes glaze over when you say electrician instead of marketing manager or some office job. She actually seemed interested, asking about the business and whether I liked working for myself. It wasn't fake interest either. She was genuinely curious. After about 8 months of dating, it made sense for her to move in. Her lease was ending, and she was practically living at my place anyway. Most of her stuff was already there now. Here's where I probably should have paid more attention to the details. But hindsight is 20/20, right? When I say she moved in, I mean she showed up with 2 suitcases of clothes, a couple of decorative pillows, some scented candles, and 3 houseplants. That was it. My place was already completely furnished because I'd been living there for 3 years. I'd spent years getting everything just how I wanted it. So basically, she moved into a fully furnished house and contributed some throw pillows. At the time, I thought it was sweet. She was making the space ours with her little touches. Looking back, that should have been red flag number 1. She was used to other people providing everything while she just existed. The first year and a half living together was actually pretty solid. Sure, we had the usual couple stuff. She'd leave dishes in the sink longer than I'd like. I'd forget to put the toilet seat down. Normal relationship things. Nothing made me question whether we were compatible or anything like that. She wasn't exactly what you'd call domestic. I'd come home from job sites to find the place looking like a tornado hit it, but I figured we were both working, so I didn't make a big deal about it. I started doing most of the cooking because she'd either burn whatever she was making or order takeout every night. Same with cleaning. I'd end up doing the dishes, laundry, bathroom, all that stuff. It didn't really bother me at first. I'm used to taking care of my own space, and I didn't want to stress her out by nagging about household stuff. Plus, she was working full-time, too. So, it seemed fair that I'd pick up the slack at home. But here's the worst part. When I gently suggest she could help out around the house a bit more, she'd act like I was asking her to build a rocket ship. I'm going through a really hard time right now, Atlas. I need to focus on my mental health, or my personal favorite. I thought you wanted me to take care of myself first. Taking care of herself apparently meant doing absolutely nothing productive while I handled everything else. And I mean everything. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, yard work, paying all the bills, maintaining the house, basically running a full household while she treated the place like her personal resort. Looking back now, I can see she was already testing boundaries, seeing how much she could get away with before I said something, how much I'd do for her while she contributed the bare minimum. But at the time, I just thought I was being a good boyfriend. Then about 3 months ago, everything changed. Beatrice decided she needed a break from work. Just like that, out of nowhere, she told her boss at the salon she was taking indefinite time off to recharge her batteries and explore new opportunities. I thought she meant a week or 2, maybe a month at most. Everyone needs a break sometimes, right? The salon business can be draining, dealing with demanding clients all day, being on your feet for hours, the chemical smells from all the products. I figured she'd decompress for a bit and then get back to it. 3 months later, she's still on this magical sabbatical. And let me tell you, she's really committed to the break lifestyle. We're talking sleeping until noon every day, spending entire afternoons binge watching reality TV shows, scrolling through TikTok and Instagram like it's her full-time job. Her job search was the biggest joke of all. And I use the term job search very loosely here, because what she was actually doing was scrolling through job postings for maybe an hour a week, then finding reasons why each position wasn't good enough for her. This one's too far from the house, she'd say about a salon that was literally 15 minutes away. This one doesn't pay enough, about a position that offered more than she was making at her old job. The reviews online are terrible, about places that had 4-star ratings. The vibe just doesn't feel right, about jobs she'd never even applied for. My favorite excuse was when she found a position at a really nice salon downtown. Better location, better clientele, opportunity for chair rental, which meant more money. Her reason for not applying? They require Saturday hours, and weekends are our time together. Our time together, which consisted of me doing chores while she watched TV. Meanwhile, I'm picking up extra work to cover her share of expenses, taking on weekend jobs when I could get them, saying yes to those emergency calls that come in at weird hours, basically anything to bring in more money. I was exhausted all the time, but I told myself this was temporary. That's what partners do, right? Support each other through tough times. The really messed up part was how she'd act like this was all completely normal. She never once thanked me for covering her expenses or acknowledged that I was doing everything around the house. If anything, she seemed to think I should be grateful that she was letting me take care of her. I'd come home around 7 p.m. covered in dust and wire clippings. And there she is, camped out on my couch in the same spot where I left her that morning. "Hey babe, how was work?" She'd ask without even looking up from her phone, like she was doing me some huge favor by acknowledging I existed. And when I'd hint that maybe it was time to start looking for work more seriously, she'd flip it back on me every time. "I thought you wanted me to be happy," she'd say with this wounded expression. Or she'd hit me with the classic manipulation. "Do you want me to just take any job and be miserable? Is that what would make you happy?" No, Beatrice. What would make me happy is if you contributed literally anything to this relationship besides taking up space on my couch. But I kept telling myself this was temporary, that eventually she'd get bored of doing nothing and want to get back to work, that she was just going through something and needed my support to get through it. But it got so much worse. Beatrice's 28th birthday was coming up in late September, and she'd been dropping hints for weeks about wanting to do something really special this year. Not just dinner and a movie or some low-key celebration. She wanted a full-blown party with friends, family, decorations, the whole production. Now, normally I'm not big on throwing parties. I'm more of a grill some burgers and watch the game kind of guy, but I figured after 3 months of supporting her while she lived like a queen, maybe a nice birthday party would remind her of what we had together, show her I cared about making her happy. Plus, she'd been pretty down about the whole job situation, or at least pretending to be. So, I thought this might cheer her up. Big mistake. I decided to go all out. I took a Friday off work, which meant losing a day's pay, but whatever. I started planning this thing like I was organizing a corporate event. We're talking about a real production here, not some half-ass get-together. I designed and printed custom invites for 30 guests, decorated the place in her favorite rose gold and white with balloon setups and a photo backdrop, and spent $400 just on decorations. I hired her favorite Mediterranean catering for nearly $800 and even brought in a professional bartender with a full setup for $300, not counting the alcohol I bought separately. I wanted everything to be perfect, even inviting people I didn't like, because they mattered to her. The hardest one was her birthday gift. She'd been talking for months about wanting to redecorate our bedroom, saying it felt too masculine and needed more feminine energy, or whatever. So, I found this local artist through Instagram who does custom paintings and commissioned a piece specifically for above our bed. I showed the artist pictures of Beatrice, told her about her style, her favorite colors, and what kind of vibe she was going for. The artist created this gorgeous abstract piece with flowers and gold accents that looked like something you'd see in a fancy hotel. It cost me $800 and took 2 weeks to complete, but it was exactly what Beatrice had been describing. The day of the party, I was running around like a maniac, getting everything set up. I started at 7 a.m. moving furniture around to create more space in the living room and kitchen, setting up the bar area on my back patio, arranging all the decorations, and making sure the playlist was a perfect mix of her favorite songs and stuff that would keep the party energy up. The catering company showed up at 4 p.m. to set everything up. The bartender arrived at 5 o'clock to get his station ready. By 6 p.m., my house looked like something out of a magazine. I'm talking professional level party setup that probably cost me close to $2,500 total when you factor in everything. Beatrice spent most of the day at her old salon getting pampered, hair, makeup, nails, the works, which I paid for obviously because what's another $200 on top of everything else? She looked absolutely stunning when she got home around 5:30. And for a minute, I actually felt good about the whole thing. Like, maybe this would be worth it. The party officially started at 7 p.m. And honestly, it was going amazingly. Everyone showed up. People were raving about the setup. The food was incredible. The bartender was killing it with the drinks. Beatrice was in her absolute element, taking pictures every 5 minutes, posting Instagram stories, playing the perfect birthday girl who was so grateful and surprised by everything. I was actually feeling pretty proud of myself. People kept coming up to me saying things like, "Dude, you really outdid yourself." And Beatrice is so lucky to have someone who does all this for her. Even her mom, who usually treats me like I'm not good enough for her precious daughter, was being nice and thanking me for making the day special. Then around 10 p.m., I went inside to grab more ice from the kitchen freezer. The caterers had used most of what I had, and the bartender was running low. That's when I heard voices coming from the spare bedroom down the hall. The door was cracked open, and I could hear female voices talking. Now, I wasn't trying to eavesdrop or anything. I was just walking by with a bag of ice when I heard my name mentioned, so naturally I stopped to listen. What guy wouldn't? It was Beatrice talking to her cousin Chelsea, who she's super close with. They talk like every day, and Chelsea knows all her business. I could hear them clearly through the cracked door. This party is absolutely incredible, Chelsea was saying. I can't believe Atlas put all this together himself. The decorations, the catering, that painting, everything is perfect. And that's when Beatrice said the words that ended our entire relationship in about 10 seconds. Yeah, Atlas is nice and all, but he's just temporary, you know? Until I find someone better. He's not really the type of guy you see a future with. I literally froze in the hallway holding that bag of ice, just standing there like a statue, while my girlfriend casually discussed my expiration date at the birthday party I'd planned and paid for entirely by myself in my own house. Chelsea laughed, not a shocked laugh, but like an amused, "Oh, Beatrice, there you go again" laugh. Then she said something like, "Well, at least he treats you well while you're figuring things out." "Oh, definitely," Beatrice replied. "He's perfect for right now. Takes care of everything. Doesn't pressure me about work. Lets me focus on myself. But long term, I need someone more ambitious, someone who's going places." Then they started talking about some guy named Derek who'd been sliding into her DMs on Instagram. Apparently, he works in finance, drives a BMW, and has an apartment downtown. They were laughing about his messages and how he keeps asking her out. "Are you going to meet up with him?" Chelsea asked. "Maybe after I figure out my exit strategy with Atlas," she said. "I mean, I can't exactly afford my own place right now, and he's been so good about covering everything." I couldn't listen anymore. I walked back to the kitchen, put the ice in the cooler, and spent the rest of the party playing the perfect host while my entire world crumbled around me. I smiled when people talked to me, made the appropriate responses, and acted like everything was fine while internally planning her departure. The crazy part was watching her for the rest of the night, knowing what I just heard. She was all over me, thanking me for making her birthday so special, posting couple pictures with captions about having the most amazing boyfriend ever, taking selfies with the custom painting, showing it off to everyone like she was so touched by the thoughtful gift. Meanwhile, I'm standing there knowing she sees me as a temporary convenience until she can upgrade to someone better, someone more ambitious than the guy who owns his own business and house, and just dropped $2,500 on her birthday party. The party ended around midnight. Her friends were all hugging me goodbye, telling me what a great job I did, how lucky Beatrice was to have me. If only they knew what she really thought. We did minimal cleanup before bed. I told her we could deal with the mess. Promises to get a job immediately. Swears she'd change, begging for another chance. She tried everything from declaring her love to threatening suicide if I threw her out. The emotional manipulation playbook got completely exhausted in about 20 minutes. I gave her until 9 p.m. to load up and leave, or everything was going on the curb. That's when the real ugly came out. She called me heartless. Said I'd regret this decision. Told me I'd never find anyone as good as her. The mask completely slipped, and I got to see who she really was underneath all the sweet girlfriend act. She loaded her car with as many boxes as would fit, cursing me the entire time. She had to make 3 separate trips because apparently someone who doesn't work accumulates a lot of possessions. Each trip back, she got angrier, probably realizing this was actually happening, and her free ride was officially over. The funniest part was watching her try to figure out logistics in real time. Where was she going to go? Her parents' place was far from here, and she'd burned bridges with most of her friends by borrowing money she never paid back. The reality of being a 28-year-old woman with no job, no savings, and no backup plan was hitting her hard. During the second trip, she tried one more angle, talking about how good we were together, all the memories we'd made, how we could work through this if I just calmed down and thought rationally, like I was the one being irrational for not wanting to date someone who saw me as a temporary placeholder. By the time she was loading the last boxes, the anger had shifted to this weird acceptance, mixed with resentment. She kept muttering things under her breath about how I'd changed, how I wasn't the man she fell in love with, how I was showing my true colors. The irony was incredible. I was showing my true colors by not letting her walk all over me anymore. The final moment was almost anticlimactic. She stood by her packed car, looking at my house like she was seeing it for the first time, maybe realizing what she'd actually lost. Not just a boyfriend, but a completely subsidized lifestyle that let her do whatever she wanted without consequences. She tried one last guilt trip, voice trembling just enough to sound pitiful. "I can't go back to my parents' place. I'm almost 30. Do you know how humiliating that is?" I didn't flinch, just looked at her and said, "Maybe next time, don't trash the person keeping a roof over your head." Then she grabbed her keys, stormed out, and drove off without another word. I went back inside and did a final check to make sure she hadn't forgotten anything or taken something that wasn't hers. The house felt different immediately. Quieter, cleaner, more peaceful, like this oppressive energy that had been building for months just vanished. That night, I called my locksmith buddy, who owed me a favor from when I'd done some electrical work at his shop for cost. He came over around 10 p.m. and changed all the locks, even the garage. It took him about an hour, and he didn't ask any questions, just handed me the new keys and said he hoped things worked out. By the time I went to bed, it was like Beatrice had never lived there at all. Her scent was gone from the pillows. Her products weren't cluttering the bathroom. Her clothes weren't scattered around the bedroom. For the first time in months, I had my space back. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. No one hogging the covers. No one's alarm going off at random times. No one sighing dramatically when I got up early for work. Just peaceful, uninterrupted sleep in my own bed. But the peace didn't last long because apparently when you cut off someone's meal ticket, they don't just quietly accept the new reality and move on with their lives. They launch a full-scale campaign to try and guilt, manipulate, or harass their way back into the situation they lost. Sunday afternoon, my phone started lighting up like a Christmas tree. Text after text, call after call, all from Beatrice's number. The progression was pretty predictable. Started with desperation, moved to anger, then back to desperation with some guilt tripping mixed in. The messages were a masterclass in manipulation tactics. The first batch was all apologies and promises to change. How sorry she was, how she'd get a job tomorrow, how she'd never take me for granted again. Real tearjerker stuff that might have worked on some sucker who hadn't heard her real opinion of him. When I didn't respond to the apology tour, she shifted gears to anger. Suddenly, I was immature, heartless, throwing away 2 years over one stupid comment. Amazing how quickly someone goes from begging forgiveness to attacking your character when they realize the guilt trip isn't working. The best ones were the threats about how I'd regret this decision, how I'd never find anyone better, how she was the best thing that ever happened to me, how I'd be crawling back, begging her to take me back. The delusion was impressive. This is coming from someone who spent 3 months doing nothing while I paid for everything. By evening, I'd had enough entertainment value from her messages and blocked her number completely. Peace restored. Problem solved. Or so I thought. Monday morning, I'm getting ready for work when my phone starts buzzing with notifications from Instagram, Facebook, even LinkedIn. Somehow, Beatrice had apparently spent her night creating new accounts and messaging me from every platform she could think of. The dedication was almost admirable. Same pattern as the texts, begging, anger, more begging, back to threats. She'd screenshot our old photos together and send them with captions about how happy we used to be. Shared memories about trips we'd taken or things we'd done, trying to make me nostalgic for the good times. What she didn't seem to understand was that those good times were built on a lie. I thought I was dating someone who cared about me and saw a future together. Turned out I was just funding someone's extended vacation while she shopped for my replacement. I blocked her on every platform I could think of and finally had some peace again, or at least I thought I did. Tuesday evening, I get a call from a number I didn't recognize. I figured it might be work-related since I'd been bidding on some new commercial projects. I answer the phone and hear a familiar voice. It's Chelsea. Chelsea wanted to mediate and help us work things out like adults. Apparently, Beatrice had been staying with her parents and was absolutely miserable. The poor little princess wasn't used to having rules and responsibilities after months of living consequence-free in my house. According to Chelsea, Beatrice was really sorry, had learned her lesson, and wanted to talk things through. She tried every manipulation angle in the book. How hurt Beatrice was. How she'd never meant what she said. How relationships require forgiveness and compromise. Look, I know what she said was wrong, Chelsea admitted, but she's been crying nonstop and just wants a chance to explain. Can't you at least hear her out? I let Chelsea talk for a few minutes before pointing out some basic facts. Then she tried the classic, girls say things they don't mean when they're frustrated, excuse, like I should just ignore what Beatrice really thought about me and pretend everything was fine. That sounded like a recipe for a healthy relationship. The conversation ended when I told Chelsea that if Beatrice had something to say, she could have said it before I heard her discussing my expiration date with Derek from Instagram. I blocked Chelsea's number and thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Thursday afternoon, I'm on a job site rewiring an office building when my phone rings. Unknown number again. This time, it's Beatrice's dad. Never liked the guy. He always acted like his daughter was slumming it by dating a tradesman instead of some college-educated office worker. He tried the man-to-man approach first, talking about how I was being immature and should work through problems instead of running away, like I was the one who'd created the situation by having standards and self-respect. When the reasonable approach didn't work, he brought out the heavy artillery, how devastated Beatrice was, how she'd learned from her mistakes, how I was being unreasonable and vindictive. The same script everyone else had been using. I explained the situation from my perspective, 3 months of supporting someone who saw me as temporary, overhearing her discuss exit strategy at the party I'd organized. He didn't want to hear any of that. Just kept insisting I was overreacting to one comment. Then Beatrice's mom got on the phone, full emotional manipulation mode, talking about her little girl who was crying herself to sleep every night. How could you be so heartless? Don't you care about Beatrice's feelings? Can't you find it in your heart to forgive her? I pointed out that their daughter had been living rent-free in my house for months while planning to dump me for someone better. Maybe they should be asking why they raised someone who thinks using people is acceptable behavior. That's when the conversation took a turn. Suddenly, I was being dramatic and vindictive for having boundaries. They couldn't understand why I wouldn't just forgive and forget like a good little doormat. They started getting defensive about their precious daughter and how she was the real victim here. The final straw was when her dad accused me of destroying a young woman's life over my fragile male ego. Like I was supposed to thank Beatrice for the privilege of being her temporary provider while she looked for an upgrade. I told them both exactly what I thought of their parenting and their daughter's character, then hung up. I blocked both their numbers immediately. If they wanted to enable their 28-year-old daughter's victim mentality, they could do it without involving me. The next few weeks were blissfully quiet. No more calls, no more messages, no more intervention attempts from family and friends. Beatrice had apparently exhausted her support network's willingness to fight her battles for her. Life started getting back to normal pretty quickly. The house stayed clean and I had my evenings and weekends back. I started picking up some hobbies I'd neglected and hung out with friends I hadn't seen much while I was playing house with Princess Beatrice. The best part was the mental energy I got back. I wasn't constantly stressed about coming home to chaos. Wasn't walking on eggshells around someone's mood swings. Wasn't working overtime to support someone who didn't appreciate it. Just peaceful, drama-free living. About a month later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Beatrice had moved back in with her parents permanently and was still taking time to figure things out. Apparently, she didn't get her job back after all because her break was way too long. Some people never learn. Her parents were apparently covering her expenses now, so she just transferred her freeloading operation to a new location. I started dating again after a few months. Nothing serious at first, just getting back out there and remembering what it was like to be with someone who actually appreciated my company. The difference was incredible. Women who thanked me for planning dates, who offered to split checks, who had their own careers and interests. Looking back, I'm grateful for that birthday party conversation. If I hadn't overheard Beatrice's real feelings, I might have wasted years with someone who saw me as a stepping stone to something better. Instead, I got my life back and learned to value myself enough not to accept being someone's plan B. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. You just have to be smart enough to leave it on the curb.